Hey, what's up, dude? How are you doing?
Hey, what's up? It's nice. It's nice. Hey there. It's great. There's two of us.
Great to.
So yeah, can you
Okay,
hear
you're both
us?
in the same. You're both in the same computer.
Yep. Yeah. So sorry
Oh,
for waiting. It
okay.
was just.
Oh, no worries, man. I just finished eating anyway. Yeah. So what was it that you guys wanted to ask me? I remember something about crop deaths, and I also remember something about antinatalism. I wanna challenge you on antinatalism if you don't mind. And also, did you say that your friend was carnist? Is that the case?
Well, he technically is carnist, but he has some vegan. I mean, let him explain.
Well, yeah, I currently am, but I do plan to become a vegan at some point. But I'm still like, trying to feel all that, philosophy and all that, because when you do, understand something by heart, then you can only truly be a vegan. Because if you just like try to be vegan because other people are, then in that case, that won't hold you for a long time, in my opinion.
Okay. Where are you guys from again?
Serbia.
Yeah, Serbia.
Oh, cool. All the way from the old world, huh? So
Yeah.
let me ask you something. To what are you guys' names, right? Any specific names you want me to call you by, or
Sure, I'm Daniel.
And I'm George.
okay? And George is the non-vegan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so George, like, let me ask you something. Why is it that you don't see it as morally obligatory to be vegan? And just to find common ground first, because like I think veganism is something that extends logically from the idea of universal human rights. And by the way, I'm at the beach right now, so if you guys can't hear me at any point because if it's windy or whatever, let me know. I'll just change places. But presumably you believe in universal human rights. Let me ask you this, George. Do you think it would be like unethical to pay for humans to be slaughtered and turned into sandwiches?
Well, of course not. But the way I see things, it's kind of different with animals because, I mean, the thing is, those animals, they're gonna die anyways. So, it's not like gonna change much in that regard because they're gonna die at some point. And the only thing is, if their death is done in a humane way with no pain, then I guess it might be kind of acceptable that the animal was killed in a such a way that it didn't, felt any pain.
Wait, what do you mean by they're gonna die anyway? Do you mean that they're gonna die of old age, or do you mean that we're gonna kill them anyway?
Yeah,
What is it that you mean?
indeed. So animals are gonna die out of old age because, I mean, that's what happens in nature. Animals die either by being killed by old age or something like that, things like that.
Yeah, but the same thing's true of humans. We humans are gonna die of old age. So let me like ask you this hypothetical. Let's say because you mentioned some stuff about humane slaughter and stuff like that. I don't believe that. I think that's an oxymoron. I don't think there's any way to humanely like kill somebody. But let's for the sake of argument accept that there's like some humane methods. But put human in that situation. Let's say we were like raising a group of humans and then humanely slaughtering those humans for sandwiches. Would you see yourself paying for that? Or would you say it would be wrong to give your money to that?
Well, of course not. It will be an awful thing because humans are kind of, uh, more complicated species. They have a brain that's way more developed than animals. So I think that's kind of, a reason why it might be, not the same thing to kill animals and to, kill humans, or to, for example, raise some humans to be killed for that matter. So I think that's a
Okay,
big
I understand.
difference.
I understand. So let me test your logic on that right there, because you mentioned something about the complexity of the brain, and probably you mean also the complexity of the subjective experience of humans. Let me ask you this hypothetical instead. Let's say the humans that we were raising for sandwiches were not like they didn't have brains or subjective experiences as complex as us. Let's say we were just raising a bunch of mentally disabled humans. You know that there are some mentally disabled humans out there, right? Let's say we were like just
Yeah.
specifically breeding mentally disabled people, and then when they are, when they have enough meat, we just stab them in the neck and turn them into sandwiches. Would you say that that would be ethical, or that would be horrific as well?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. And I suppose you expect me to say that would be unethical, but I might
No, I don't.
surprise
I
you
don't
there
expect you. By
that,
the way, to be clear, I don't expect you to, answer anything in particular. I'm just exploring your values. I want to understand, like, according to you, do you see that situation in which we're like slaughtering mentally disabled people? And
yeah, yeah,
I want to understand.
that's an
Yeah.
interesting question. Yeah. And well, I don't think that would be, such a bad thing, but it's something that's, not socially accepted, and if that, mentally disabled person has, family that like cares about that person and, things like that, then, of course it will be a bad thing. It will be equally, a bad thing if, someone would have their pet killed for that reason also, because, people kind of bound with pets, so the main question is whether or not that person actually has someone, because I mean, killing that person will, cause a lot of pain for example, the family of that person, its relatives, and so on. But if that person doesn't have anyone, then I don't think it's gonna like cause any pain to anyone. So, I mean, it might sound like, an awful thing, but I mean, I don't really see any difference between like killing mentally disabled people who don't have, any relatives, family, or anybody who cares about them, and, animals on the farm.
Okay, so I understand. So what you did there is that you added like two additional traits. You mentioned like the social unacceptability of the action, and you mentioned like the extrinsic suffering that would be caused to like family members that care about these individuals and stuff like that. So let me
Yeah,
like
indeed.
equalize. Let me equalize the hypothetical. Let's say I want you to imagine this situation. Let's say we were raising a group of mentally disabled people that had minds, similar to the minds of pigs or children, stuff like that. Not as developed as our minds that can have like complex like discussions such as
Yeah,
this
yeah, I
or what
understand.
else.
Okay.
So we were raising specifically those humans, and let's say in this society that we're looking at like a possible world in which it is such socially acceptable, like nobody cares. And then these people don't have any family member because we're specifically breeding them for this. Nobody cares about them, no family members. So the question is that a ethical situation, or would you say that's fucked up and we should not do that?
Well, I mean, for most people, it would be kind of, unacceptable because,
I'm asking
there
you,
are
by the
people.
way. I understand to most people, whatever, like, but I'm asking you specifically. Do you see that situation, that possible world, and do you say that's fine, or do you think that's wrong according to your values?
Well, I mean, the thing that kind of is also very important here is, the feeling that we have about this. And sometimes we cannot, like, explain our feelings clearly. So there is a feeling that it's kind of wrong, that it's kind of bad. And I guess it's a feeling that has, like, some, roots that lay deep down in our evolution as a species, and I think it's similar to other species as well, that we don't want members of our species to like suffer and things like that. I mean, even though I said earlier that I don't really think that's really a wrong thing to like kill that kind of person for food, it still seems kind of wrong to like raise those kind of people for for food, to do it on a larger industrial scale, so it does feel kind of wrong, even though when I use logic without emotions, it's kind of the same as like raising some animals. But if I'm like trying to act in accordance with what I actually feel, then it's kind of wrong.
I see. So
I
you
can't
say that
really.
you have like some like feeling that it is like bad, but you know, like the question is this: like, would you if you were to go to that possible world, would you see yourself giving money to that situation? Would you see yourself financing that with your own money? Like, let's say they like reopen Auschwitz and they had all these concentration camps with mentally
Yeah, I
disabled people
understand.
that
To
they stabbed.
there's.
Would you see
Yeah, I
yourself giving
understand.
your money to that, or would you say it would be bad to give your money to that? You wouldn't personally give your money to that.
Well, I mean, there's, so you have a logic and there's also an emotional part. So, the decision must be made. So, well, in that case, I mean, I would, feel guilt and things like that if I had to, like, support something like that. Because, I mean, they're still people, so there's still some emotional, connection with them, even though they're, like as you said, mentally disabled and all that. So, you know, I think that I probably wouldn't support, a thing like that. I mean, it will
Okay, so
probably
you
be,
wouldn't.
yeah.
You wouldn't support it. So that would actually contradict the traits that you already mentioned. So what is it then, if not like the complexity of the mind, if not the social acceptability and the extrinsic suffering? What is it then that accounts for your differential attitude between that situation and the animal Holocaust? Because you currently give your money to the animal Holocaust, but you wouldn't give your money to that human Holocaust in the hypothetical. So what is it that accounts for your differential attitude there between those two cases?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good question, of course, but, I mean, the major reason, I guess, is because, I mean, you as a human, I mean, me as a human, I was, raised in a society, where, of course, the members are humans, human beings. So you kind of, develop, bonds with them. You kind of, develop your emotional part of the brain, in accordance with, the fact that you're surrounded with all those humans. So, yeah, humans are, because of that, the thing that, you know, you just like develop that kind of empathy, that, you feel, the suffering of other humans more deeply than the suffering of the animals, because, animals weren't like the part of your, developing, emotional developing and all that. I mean, of course, you had a chance to see, some pets, dogs, cats, and all that, but I mean, you're mostly surrounded by humans. So humans are, those who actually contribute to your, emotional development and all that. And of course, the emotional part of your brain is the one that's responsible for, like, having the empathy and all that. So I think that's the main reason, because I mean,
Yeah, I
I'm
understand.
like
So
I'm just imagining, like, a hypothetical scenario where, for example, I would, had, an equal exposure to animals as well as to humans. So if that were the case, then I guess that there would be, some empathy that's like, you know, much, greater than the one that I currently have for animals. So I think that's the main reason.
yep. So I understand. So there's like two questions that these raises for me. So the first one is like you mentioned about like the emotional impact that you experience witnessing like the human Holocaust versus the animal Holocaust. I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask you like do you really think that's like important? Like let's say for some reason you didn't experience any emotion by seeing like humans being slaughtered. Like let's say you for some reason you lacked empathy, like you didn't have that part of your brain that creates empathy. Don't you like at least like logically understand that that would still be bad to Holocaust humans, regardless of whether or not it
Well,
emotionally
I mean,
impacts you?
of course, I mean, as I said, I do understand intellectually that, killing animals is bad, and hence the reason why I'm trying to actually become a vegan. So you now ask, if I didn't have that emotional part, would I be able to, understand why it is bad to like raise people for, for food and all that? Well, Well, let me tell you something. You have people like, psychopaths who actually are criminals who kill all the time. They even make, meals out of those killed people, and that's not a secret. So, I mean, you have cases like that. So there are people who have no emotional brain whatsoever. So killing
Yep,
for
I
them is
understand. I understand. This is a bit of topic, by the way. I was just curious to know if you like distinguish between like just experiencing something emotionally and like logically understanding that. For example, if you were that person, you wouldn't want that done to yourself, like independently if you like experience some emotions or not. But like I wanted to ask you another hypothetical because you mentioned humanity at one point. You mentioned I specifically have these feelings for my species, my own species. So I want to I
yeah.
want to like add an additional trait to the hypothetical that we were talking about. Let's say uh, in this possible world in which we're like holocausting all these mentally disabled people, let's say that they were not human. Let's say we tested their DNA and they were like physically identical to us and they had like minds identical to like mentally disabled people, but they were not Homo sapiens. We tested their DNA. They weren't from our species. We couldn't interbreed with them. Would you now see yourself like paying for that situation? Would you see yourself giving your money to that or still no?
Well, that's a very good question again. Well, the thing is, the more the species is similar, the more the empathy is present. Because, as I said earlier, that empathy is due to the fact that you were raised. I mean, I was raised, surrounded by human species and all that, and that kind of created that emotional connections and all that, made the development of that emotional part. And now, I mean, if, as you said, that, species are like similar to humans, but are, genetically not humans, but some other species, where I think that there will be still a lot of similarities and common traits between human and that species. So I think that there would be
But
a,
enough,
emotional connection. There would
but
be some degree of.
independent of that, like would the similarities shared be like enough for you to not give your money to it, or would you see yourself giving your money to it?
Well, look, I mean, the more the species like closer to like human species, the more humans actually care about that species, and it's not like that they care because they care, but it's because it's just like their emotional part that like supports that care for those species alike. So.
What similarities are you talking about, to be clear about what you're talking about? What are the similarities
Well, the
that you're talking about?
similarity is like, we have like similar bodies, so that's a similarity. So it's not like, that's, you know, a species shaped like a whale or a cat or a dog, but it's actually a species that, is like some persons, some Homo sapiens, right? So it's like similar in that regard. So we are talking about that kind of similarities. I mean, that species like doesn't have to like know how to talk and all that, but it still has that body features that are like similar. I mean, you
Yep.
don't really see that monkeys are like killed, like chimpanzees and species like that. I mean, nobody eats that. I mean, there are some people actually who do eat that, but it's not like the majority.
It's they are like tested on for as
Yep,
research actually.
that's true. They're tested on, and they also people that eat chimpanzees stuff like it's called bushmeat. Supposedly, like HIV was
Well, I
spread,
mean, of course,
but
I do suppose that there is a minority that does that,
yeah,
but
but that's
again,
that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant anyway. That's
but we
irrelevant
should
to the
also
dialogue
note
process.
that there's also, I mean, I guess that it used to be a people like that. I hope that there's not people like that anymore that actually eat other people, the cannibals, right? And
Yeah,
those
there's
were
still
from
some out
some
there.
parts of
Yeah,
Africa. So
yeah.
I
So
hope
so
they
let
don't
me
really exist
let
anymore.
me let me like again this let me throw this hypothetical at you. Let's say like the all the features in the hypothetical that we already talked about were there, but now let's add this additional feature. let's say that they didn't share body morphology with us. Like they didn't look anything like us. So they just look like crazy fucking aliens with bodies, nothing close to our bodies, right? But they had minds identical to the minds of mentally disabled people. Would you then, in that hypothetical, would you see yourself like giving your money to that?
Oh, well, again, if, as you say, those species would like, humans with mentally disabled mind, but had a, body that's like, for example, a dog or a cat or something like that. Um,
Yeah, something like
well,
that, or even crazier. Let's say it looked like some sort of weird octopus or some sort of like a plant. It looked like a plant or something, like nothing close to us.
well, I mean, it again depends on like the main factor, and it's like, is the person who was asked that question raised in an environment
I'm
where
asking
that
you, bro.
person.
So remember, I'm asking you. Like, I want to understand if you personally would
Yeah,
give your money to
well,
that in the same way that
yeah,
you're currently giving your money
okay.
to the animal
So
Holocaust. Yeah.
if you're asking me, then uh, my answer will be, since I wasn't raised, surrounded by creatures like that, I haven't actually developed, that like empathy for, hypothetical creatures like that. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind, so, for example, people raise, farms and kill those kind of creatures. So, yeah, I mean, that would be my answer.
So to be clear, yes, like you would see yourself like
Yeah,
giving your
yeah,
money to that, buying a sandwich out of those people. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then right there I seem to reach like a fundamental value difference. I think that's crazy. I hear that and I think that's crazy because like that's what I call and what some people in this community call shell morality, which is like valuing like external stuff like your own emotional impact or the body morphology of someone. I think all that stuff is completely irrelevant. I think the only thing that actually matters in this universe is minds, is subjective experiences. So if you're gonna say that in one case it is bad to stab like a mentally disabled human, but then in another case it is okay to stab a person with the mind of the same mind of that mentally disabled person, but in a different body, it's now for some reason ethical to pay for that. I just see that as problematic and like kind of arbitrary. I prefer to like just respect people like uh, because of who they are intrinsically, which is their minds or their souls or whatever you want to call it. But I just hope you like reflect on that bullet that you just bits and just try to actually put yourself in the position of the victims. If you were like one of these animals, you obviously wouldn't want people holocausting you and stuff like that. So I think it's just more a matter of like trying to empathize with these animals.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, I do understand your point, but as I said, our actions are, for the most part, driven by, our emotions. I mean, it might not be the case for all the people, of course, but for most people, that is the case. So, I mean, intellectually, I do know that, I mean, killing other animals is bad, and that, of course, there's a suffering there, and those animals like feel pain and all that. But the problem is that I can't like feel that, because I mean, my emotional part of the brain wasn't actually developed to kind of you know um, connect with animals, let's say. So that's kind of a problem, and I can't like say that just having some information, like knowing something, is like enough to like act. I mean, all people know what's good and what's bad, but of course you don't really see that everybody is good. I mean, there are bad people, there are good people. I mean, it's not the fact that we know something, but it's rather a fact. It's actually more than that. We just have to feel something to actually like act in accordance with that.
Yeah, like I don't know about that. I'm kind of agnostic about that. Like if I were for some reason to hit my head really hard, like let's say somebody like hit my head with a bat and I like lost all my emotions, I would still be vegan. Like I would like regardless of whether or not I cared emotionally about an animal being stabbed, I would still not stab it, just because I logically understand that if I were in their position, I wouldn't want that done. But anyway, like right now, it's just between you and your conscience. I hope you reflect in like the logical entailments of your current position. Like your position entails like paying for the Holocaust of beings that are mentally identical to mentally disabled people that we already care about in this society. They just happen to be in another body, and just because they happen to be in another body, it's fine to stab them. I think that's kind of crazy. I hope you reflect on it. But this actually just concludes the conversation. I just hope you reflect on those entailments, and I guess we can move on to Daniel. Like, any
Well,
what were
but
the questions?
I
Yep.
just want to add one more thing. When you
Sure,
like
sure. Go ahead.
compare animals
Yeah,
with the
you can give
mentally
a
disabled,
statement.
I wouldn't actually agree on that point because I mean, animals they are not actually mentally disabled, and their brains function pretty well. They can do all kinds of stuff that humans can't even dream about. I mean,
No,
you
I
can
agree
see
with that.
with birds, for
No, I
example,
agree with
they
that.
can
Dude,
fly with
let me
such a
clarify.
precision
Yes, yes.
and all
Let me
that. So,
clarify.
I mean, those are just incredible skills. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Let
it's
me
like
clarify my
having
position.
extreme talent.
Let me
So,
clarify
I
my
mean,
position. Yes, like animals are intelligent in many ways, and they have a lot of skills that we don't have at all. Some animals like use echolocation, and they communicate in like crazy ways that we couldn't even like imagine to like do ourselves. But the point I'm trying to make is that even if we found like mentally disabled humans that are don't have the qualities that you claim to care about, like higher cognition or like language or stuff like that, you will still care about those beings. But if they happen to be in another body, for some reason you now like would pay for their Holocaust. So that's the entailment that I'm talking about. I know animals are intelligent. Trust me.
well, I mean, I don't want to say intelligent, but I think that the word talented would be a more appropriate because, I mean, the way some animals actually have hunting skills and all that, I mean, it's kind of, a type of talent. So I'll rather compare, animals with some talented humans that are, not very intelligent, but are talented. So I think that's like a better comparison.
Yeah, I agree.
But
Like that's just like a semantic thing. Like I get
Yeah,
reminded of
yeah,
like
I get your point,
Einstein
definitely, yeah.
Einstein said something like, "Good luck trying to measure a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree." Like obviously, a fish is not going to climb a tree, but like they are intelligent in other ways and stuff, or
Yeah,
talented in other
and
ways. Yep.
yeah.
I would actually like to add that there was a leopard or a cheetah that actually was using its cunning to hunt the mother gazelle by actually taunting it with like he always would manipulate the little one by actually pushing its paw on it, like it wanted to attack, but actually it just wanted to attract the mother so it could eat the mother instead. So yeah, they actually have some kind of intelligence, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if you were to like talk about intelligence in like more scientific kind of way, like intelligence is something separate. Like even plants are intelligent. Like artificial intelligence is intelligence. Intelligence just means like an ability to react to like stimuli in complex ways and stuff like that. So technically, yes, they are intelligent. But anyway, we can move on to Daniel. Like whatever question you had for me, bro.
Yeah, well, actually, my question was main question was about insects. Like, we may be differ in our opinions and regards to insects. So maybe there is this discrepancy that will make the difference in our opinions. And like to you, as I gathered, you don't care if like a harvester just goes across a field and kills billions of insects, while I just recently
No,
started thinking, uh-huh.
that's not exactly my view. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, but to me, I just recently started thinking about how it's not even like, who am I to, like, just because I'm more powerful, more like superior in like ways that I could exploit them, that doesn't mean I have the moral right to do so. Like, even just one insect life isn't. It's that there's simply no justification for that action.
Yeah, so let me first let's find the common ground first. We agree that insects deserve at least a precautionary principle. I'm agnostic as to whether or not insects are sentient, but they could be. They have like at least central nervous systems and stuff like that. And not all of them have like true brains, but like there's no scientific consensus right now as to whether or not they're sentient. That's why I give them a precautionary principle. So I think it is bad to exploit insects. Like, for example, I think it's not vegan to pay for honey, stuff like that. I think we should extend a precautionary principle to insects. But where we might disagree is whether or not industrial deaths and crop deaths in like in the production of crops, is it a rights violation? Is it unethical? I think that's where we disagree.
But why? Why exactly?
So is it your position that we are violating their rights when we
Well, by killing them, by taking their lives, knowingly that it will take their life, like just taking our food means that there will be like how do you call it, casualties, like sudden, like accidental deaths that we are not really accidental when we think and know about them. Like
yeah,
what will
and
happen?
it's not accidental either when we use like specifically pesticides to kill them and stuff like that.
Yeah,
The
even that, yeah.
yeah
Yeah, but I don't
the
think
thing
about
is,
it because
yeah, you can go on.
yeah, because like it's like if we don't use pesticides, it's not necessarily that everything will be eaten. It's just that the amount, I guess, will be drastically lower than what we in this current overpopulated planet and super hyper production, like madness, is just like everything's just wrong the way it is currently. So I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, no worries, no worries. And I'll agree with you that there's some problematic things with it. Assuming that insects are sentient, but like the thing is, I don't see any rights violation. I don't. I'm not convinced we're like violating any rights by causing these like industrial deaths by using pesticides. I'm just not convinced there's any rights violation, and I can explain why I think that. By the way.
Of course, you can.
Yeah, so the thing is, I think there's some competing rights when it comes to like things like a right to property and a right to like have like a food security for our species and stuff like that. So I think it would be like for those reasons, I think it is justified to use pesticides to commit all these like industrial deaths, like, and I even accept that in the human context. Like, let's say like instead of insects we were killing like humans. Let's say like a group of humans decided to just mess with our crops. Let's say like, I don't know, Russia like decided to enter the United States and to fuck with our crops, like start burning our fucking crops and stuff like that. I think it would be justified to shoot the Russians in the hypothetical. So that's why I don't think there's any like rights violation, because there's like some competing rights, and those rights being the right to property and the right to have food security.
I think you have a good point there, but like let's say that they are actually stupid and don't know what's wrong and what's right, so they just eat whatever's on their way, but the problem is I don't know if they feel pain. That's the biggest problem. Like may I hope not. And just thinking about how everything's not really right. Just animals that are certainly innocent. Like, but they're stupid too. They see like chickens peck in insects and eat them. Maybe intentionally or accidentally as well. But my point is that. There is certainly no definite knowledge that that it's right to actually kill others, like, and take their lives for our own, like
Yeah.
just.
And I
Yeah.
think
Sorry. Go
that
on.
I have just something to add, if it's not a problem.
Of course.
It is long been taught that insects don't really feel any pain whatsoever, but the recent studies actually revealed that they do feel a pain. So I think that it's a thing that's kind of even starting to, improven by science as we speak. So
Yeah.
right now, science does like recognize that insects do feel pain.
No, I don't think there's any like actual consensus that they feel pain. There are what is called signs of consciousness. So there are like certain like behaviors and traits that they have that are I consider signs of consciousness. So they point towards the direction that they could be sentient, but there's no consensus as to whether they actually feel pain as of now. Not any
Well,
that I've seen, but anyway.
I mean, they do feel reaction, right? So, I mean, for example, when a fly sees someone is like approaching it, flies off, it like moves quickly and so on. So insects are kind of shy, they kind of go away. And I mean, exact same thing is when we feel pain. So when you like, put your hand on, a heated surface, then you like remove instantly your hand. So that reaction can like, partially be a proof that they do feel a pain because
No, so
if
I
they didn't.
disagree. I disagree there because I don't think we can necessarily assume consciousness just by reactions. Like plants also react to stimuli; they move towards light. Sometimes they like catch insects and eat insects. When we're talking about like carnivorous plants, we don't assume that plants have a mind. We just think that they react to stimuli. It is certainly like logically possible that insects are like some sort of like automatons that like react blindly to stimuli. Uh, but it is also possible that they're sentient. That's why I'm agnostic. I do extend the precautionary principle, but I am not convinced that they're sentient, and I don't think like there's any scientific consensus that like proves they're sentient or anything like that.
Well, I mean, there might be still uncertainty, but I think that in the future there will be a proof that, they actually do feel a pain. They do have a nervous system, right? So, I mean, a nervous system is something that actually is mainly responsible for, feeling the pain and all that. So, I guess it's still a thing that as times go on, we will be certain if whether they feel a pain or not.
Yep, and I think by the way that we should at least extend them a precautionary principle, and if in the future we in fact find out they're sentient, then that's just gonna prove that they do deserve moral consideration. I'm just not to go back to what I was talking about with Daniel.
But
I'm not convinced.
let's just like
Yep.
assume the worst case scenario, and it's that they do actually sense pain, feel pain,
Sure,
and all
sure,
that.
sure. Let's do that for the
So
sake of argument. For the sake of
yeah,
argument, let's assume they are conscious. Yes, let's do that.
because to be honest, I mean, it might be the truth, but let's just assume that's the truth. So in that imaginary scenario, um, things will get drastically more complicated for the vegan community and everybody that's fighting for the cruelty-free agenda and all that. So if insects would actually feel a pain, then what would be the right thing to do? I mean, how would you actually like produce plant food on a industrial scale, on a large
Yep,
scale, and things like that?
yep.
Because I mean,
So
the only way you can actually do that is to use the pesticides, and they kill insects slowly. So that definitely means they die in severe pain if they, of course, feel pain, which we assume they do.
yeah, so I'm happy to assume for the sake of argument that they are conscious. Let's do that, and then we can explore like the entailments of like what is it more our crop that's moral stuff like that. Right now, I am not convinced that there's any rights violation. I am not convinced that vegans should care about rights violation, or at least I mean they should care in the sense that it is in an ideal world we would like. Do something about like at least not because there's many things that like complicate like the moral landscape. Another thing is that most insects are carnivorous. and or like they eat other insects, so they like horrifically eat each other. So that it's not clear to me that by killing insects in the first place we would be like increasing rights violation. We could very well be decreasing rights violation by killing like carnivorous insects and stuff like that.
But there are also, that kind of animals. I mean, the vertebrates, right? Who actually kill other, vertebrates. So, the same logic would apply for them as well.
Yep, definitely, and this will
So in
actually
that
like
case,
open.
hunting
By the way,
some hunt
yeah,
animals like that is like a
yeah,
justified thing, right?
yeah. So this is actually gonna open up a whole other can of worms, because I do think it is justified to kill certain predators to save victims and stuff like that. But this is something we can talk about separately in a little bit. Let's just like, for the sake of argument, let's stick with like the insects that are benevolent and they don't violate anybody's rights. I think there's some insects that only eat plants and stuff like that. So let's just stick with them first, and then we can talk about like the parasitic insects or the carnivorous insects or whatever. Like, I'm still not convinced that I would be violating anybody's rights by like using pesticide or stuff like that. You guys can feel free to like change my mind. I just don't think there's any like rights violation or anything wrong by protecting our crops, protecting our food security, etc.
Would you go against them if they were more powerful than you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of is like similar to the hypothetical I just posed. If there were like a bunch of Russians like burning all our crops, we would definitely be justified in like shooting the Russians.
Well, if you knew that no Russian would be dead, even like they had some superpowers or something like that, it's super strength, super soldiers that can't die by any known technology that is known to us, would you still go against them, or would you just sit there and await your death? Well, I mean, what's the point if like things are set up so that you're more powerful than someone and you just use that simple opportunity to exploit someone just because there's no justification. Like, we don't even know how we became what we became. We were humans. We're more powerful than insects. We can stomp on them, we can eat them, we can do whatever we can. Like,
No, I mean
I
that's
mean,
not my position. I don't think we should do whatever we want with insects. I think it's bad to farm insects and to like slaughter insects on a mass scale for like eating like crickets with barbecue sauce or whatever. What I'm not convinced is bad is like the industrial deaths or the pesticide deaths, etc. Like, and I don't really understand the point of the hypothetical. If you're talking about if we're talking about some like aliens that are super powerful, would I fight against them? I mean, probably I would fight until my last breath. I don't know, but I don't really understand the relevance of the hypothetical there.
well, the point was that well, it's just a big what if. Like, there is nothing much to it. It's just like, would you simply it's not really deontological to go like, let's suppose the weaker ones and like s- shy like run away from the stronger ones. But like, yeah, if um you were threatened by some Russians that were trying to exploit your did use your crops, and that was the only way to survive, to use those crops for you. Would you like defend, like, yeah, you just said, but yeah, it's I don't know. I'm really a defeatist in almost all of the situations I could list, and I just don't know. Like, I myself am kind of suicidal. Well, it's
Yeah, I'm
funny.
sorry to hear that, man. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
Hope you
yeah, but it's
feel
okay.
better soon, man.
I'll try. I'll figure something out. I just don't know what to do with myself. But yeah, I have to figure that out for myself. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know what to add to that anymore. So yeah.
Yeah. So,
Like,
first of all, like I hope you feel better soon, and you seek treatment if necessary and whatever. Because I want cool possible vegans like you to remain alive. But anyway, to go back to the conversation that I was having with Daniel, like, do you think I am like being inconsistent in my position by thinking it's like not a rights violation to kill insects with pesticides to protect our deaths, to protect our crops. Sorry. Do you think I'm being like some sort of hypocrite or something, or do you think I have a consistent position?
well, um, it's really complicated because what their intention is probably not to eat humans but to eat their food, but and they don't think about directly killing us, but actually what benefits them. So us killing them would be kind of really the well, it's I guess both are justified. Everything's justified, and there's really no.
Well, I can
Mhm.
add up here something. So,
Yeah.
I think that what he actually tries to say is that if someone is a vegan and is against the, you know, cruelty, right? Um, he's not gonna justify any means of like killing any animals that feel pain. And in this hypothetical scenario, we did assume that insects, right, feel pain. So, for those reasons, I think that Daniel
Yep.
would
Go
be
on.
against killing those insects with pesticides because you're still killing them, right? So they feel pain and all that. And if someone is a vegan, then there's like no exceptions whether or not, living creatures should be killed. So even for, those cases like, growing plants on large scales and things like that, killing insects with, pesticides is not justified by any means. I mean, that's at least what I think that he's trying to say.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the point. Like I think Harry said that you wouldn't even if it would be required that you kill animals to live, like as a condition, you wouldn't do it. Like, why would you not care about insects then?
Correct. Like I think it's not justified to just stab a bunch of innocent beings to benefit myself. Like in that situation, like if I was like in a hypothetical, like starving to death in an island, and there was like a bunch of pigs there, I think it would be wrong to stab those innocent pigs to death and eat them. The symmetry breaker that I see between the two cases that I'm not clear there's any rights violation in the crop the situation, because I think there might be a more fundamental difference between our views, and I think I'm starting to come to the bottom of it. I think it's just a difference in how we define veganism, because the way I see veganism is just like a logical extension of the idea of universal human rights. You're talking about stuff like suffering, like preventing suffering or cruelty. I think veganism, at least to me, the way I define it, it has to do with extending the idea of universal human rights to other sentient beings. So that's why I don't think I'm being inconsistent in thinking that it would be okay to kill uh, uh, insects in certain situations, like and or even humans, like the hypothetical that we were talking about, that the Russians came to like destroy our crops. I think it would be justified to protect our crops because we have a right to property, a right to food security that we. So it would be justified, and I can even go further. I can even say, because you were talking about like those insects are like they're not looking to harm us. They're just looking to eat some food. And you said
Yeah.
something about they're not being like moral agents, so they don't have like evil intentions or anything. I can even like trade equalize, and I can like talk about a hypothetical in which like there's actually uh, humans that are very like small, like tiny humans that are like mentally disabled and they don't have any moral agency, and they're just going around like eating all our crops. And we had a choice between like facing existential risk by letting them eat all our crops and like civilization collapsing and everybody starving to death, or like protecting our crops from these like tiny humans that are eating all our crops. I think it would be justified in that situation to protect our crops as well. So that's why I think there's no like inconsistency in my view, but I'm open to being challenged on that.
Well, I have to say here that you understood correctly that his veganism has a different base point compared to yours. So yours, as you said, is the extension of human rights to animals, while his is based on the fact that there's suffering and pain and all that, and of course he's against that. So I think that's his. Uh, those are his basis for his belief in veganism. But still I have to add that if we do want to, for example, choose your base for veganism, that it is the extension of human rights to animals, the insects are also like animals, so those rights should be also extended to them. That's the first thing. The second thing is about those crops that those insects damage, not intentionally, but just because they do random things. Well, I think that there are always like some solutions, like technological solutions, that can actually enable us to protect the crops without having to kill, any insects, like making some, I don't know, growing crops in some facilities that are like enormously big and something like that. I mean, I know that it's like some science fiction like idea, but still, I mean, let's imagine a scenario where those humans, where those insects will be humans. I mean, not the Russians that you mentioned, but just like some humans that randomly eat some crops and they don't really know it's a bad thing. So I don't really believe that anyone would actually kill those humans. I mean, even if they did like wanted to apply that solution, there would still be like, the activists, the journalists, and, all kinds of people who would like, reveal that to the public. And then, masses will like push government to like, fund some solutions and things like that. So I think that some solutions will quickly arise in a case if humans were, in the position of those insects. I mean, in place of those insects. So I think that, there's always a solution no matter what. So if we like don't live on a kill insects, there is a way. There's always a way. So I think that, killing insects, it's kind of like denying their rights, to simply, live.
Yeah, so
And
we
just
can certainly agree. Sorry, you can. I'll let you speak in a second. But we can certainly agree that like assuming that insects are sentient and like assuming we're talking about like a benevolent like herbivorous insects or whatever. Yes, it would actually be preferable if we develop some technology like I don't know, we implement some vertical farming like indoors and stuff like that where insects cannot get access and we don't have to kill those insects. That would certainly be better. So that's why I don't claim like veganism is a solution to all the problems that we're
But
facing right
the
now. I
reason
just, I
we
just think
don't actually develop
Yep.
that because we don't really, go into that direction of thinking, right? Because people don't really care about insects or even any other animals. I mean, that's kind of changing because we do have vegans and all that are like rising, but still there's almost no concern about the insects. So I think that for those reasons, nobody actually thinks in that direction, like making some solutions that might protect insects by not using, those pesticides and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, by the way, you claim that your scenarios are like science fiction or not like that. I disagree. I think it is very good to think like that and be optimistic about the
It
future
will
and
be
like
only, it
try
will only
to
look like a
develop
science
technologies like that.
fiction. That's what I actually meant to say. That it will look like a science fiction, but to be honest, I mean, nowadays we have so many technological solutions that it's almost like we are in a science fiction nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah, we are in the science fiction of the people of the past, certainly, and
Yeah.
I think that with more people like having this kind of like awareness and like having more moral consideration for animals, including insects, we will find more and more solutions, including to the problem of predation. I think predation in nature is a huge problem, and I hope we also like develop some technologies to like maybe perhaps in the distant future to like herbivorize predators or like separate prey from predators and like prevent them from violating each other's rights and stuff like that. But that's
Well, that might be the case in some, future that's gonna be, not anytime soon, in my opinion, but it might take a place at some point, and I'm pretty certain that it is gonna take place at some point, but not anytime soon, because I mean, you have like the ecological system
Well,
that's like.
soon. By the way, soon is relative, right? It's like in the eyes of the universe, all human history has been like a blink of an eye. So it is all relative, you know.
Well, yeah. Well, then in that case, it's gonna be very soon. But my point is that um, it is gonna happen at some point. I'm pretty sure, but um, I don't know. Right now, at the point that we are living currently, we have, ecological systems that are just like so interconnected. So, that is just a part of it. So every second, like trillions of like living creatures die. I mean, just one whale, like, in one meal, he kills so many krills that it's like just like unimaginable. So yeah, you have things like that. So it's just like a part of the nature. So suffering, we don't even know what it is. Does it only like extends to animals or even other, creatures? I mean, just like some, philosophies. So that will be a completely different topic.
Yeah, sure. It is certainly possible that many more beings in this universe suffer, not only animals. It is certainly even like panpsychism is possible. Like for all we know, like everything could be sentient for all we know. But like I think this actually a good segue into the other topic that Daniel mentioned. You mentioned antinatalism. Are you both antinatalist or just Daniel?
I think I'm the only one.
The anti what?
Antinatalist, that you're against people giving birth and just reproducing.
So against reproducing by giving birth.
Well, anyway, just
Bringing, he
losing
said,
what.
presumably you're against bringing sentient beings into existence. Yeah, just procreation in any form, right?
So he's against like the procreation of a sentient beings, right?
Well,
Or
I don't know
specifically
if.
humans.
Well, like I don't know if um it's really a difficult question because not everyone wants to die. Some people want to live, and you just can't go against their will. But they, on the way, cause harm to other beings, and like just. Is it my problem or is it their problem? Is it my concern that the weaker with a something weaker or someone weaker is being abused, or like when I like walk down a road and see someone beating a dog, should I say no, it's just between them, or should I go and try to help?
So I actually understand what he's trying to say. So he doesn't like the fact that there is an injustice in this universe, that there are someone who are stronger and that there are someone who are weaker, and that those who are weaker suffer and those who are stronger not. And he just doesn't like the fact that there's injustice. So I think that he's trying to say that. If I'm wrong, he can correct me.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much right. But yeah, we can even move on to the fact that like maybe even plants, maybe even some simpler life forms, or even something we wouldn't consider life forms can feel something. But that's maybe a bit too far on the. We can't prove that. We couldn't even agree on something regarding insects, let alone minerals. Let's say.
Yeah, sure.
So
Like
yeah,
at least we don't have any reason to suppose that. Like from what we know right now. But like I think like I am actually a natalist, so I think it is actually a good thing for the human species to procreate and spread. I presume that you disagree with that. That people should not like have babies.
well, yeah. Yeah, I think that It's a hard topic. I mean, everything is a hard topic. So sorry for doing that cliche again and again. But yeah, if that being would like to be born, then it's, I guess, not a breach of the rule. But if that being isn't really happy with its life, and like in one of your previous podcasts, the guy said it was gambling, so it's not really right to do so. It's like the guy isn't happy, or the girl isn't happy with its life. Like, what did you do? You just ruin the life without like thinking in advance what
Well,
you could have done.
yeah, well, like
Well, it's
I'm certainly like in favor of people of people choosing to cease to exist if that's like really what they want. But I just don't see like what is it that we're accomplishing by being antinatalist. Like, what values do you think that you have that extends logically antinatalism as an applied ethic for you? Like, what is it that you think that you would be accomplishing if humanity ceases to have babies?
Well, I'm somewhat weird on this because I believe in the spiritual world, and like I think that the consciousness persists even after what we call physical death. So there are, but we can disagree on that because like you certainly don't believe in that because there's no evidence. But there is evidence actually. If you heard about the phenomena called near-death experiences.
Yeah, I've heard about some experiences like not only near death experiences. I've heard about out of body experiences. I actually had like quite a few like out of body experiences myself, or like lucid dream, very vivid lucid dreaming in which it seemed like I was out of my body and stuff like that. But I just think that's not reason enough to assume an afterlife, because it could be explained by another, like it could be explained in another way, more like a more reductionistic way. It could actually be our brain just having and making these hallucinations for us. So that's why I'm like
Well,
unconvinced that there's an
even
afterlife.
even veridical perception, like you see things exactly as they are. You can read someone's thought. I can link you the YouTube video after we finish, so maybe that will convince you. A doctor's testimony, just he expresses that like his thoughts were read by the guy that just died, and when he came back told him what he thought, like what he felt, the embarrassment of not having the like possibility to help the guy in that situation because he was a new doctor and like his senior just left the room and everything was left. The situation was a bit difficult for him and he couldn't really figure out what to do. If my memory serves me well.
Sure, and I'm happy to see that, and I'm always happy to change my mind on anything, right? If there's evidence out there. As of now, I'm agnostic as to whether or not there's an afterlife. I don't think we have any reason to believe that as of now. But this is a little bit off topic. I just want to understand about your antinatalism position specifically, because the way I see it, there's two things that we could possibly do. One of them is choosing to stop procreating, and the other is continuing to procreate. And I think the consequences are very different to those two things. Like, because I think if humanity were to cease to exist, what will be the thing that will be left behind would be horrific. Like, if we stop procreating and let's say we went extinct, what are we gonna leave behind? We're gonna leave behind like a natural world full of animals like eating each other. Like, there's not gonna be any like sapient species to like take care of those animals. They're gonna be like in that eternal like cycle of like suffering forever, like if we cease to exist. But if we were to remain in the planet, we could actually help these animals with technologies down the road.
Well, the problem with this thing is that it branches, so it like the more we get, for the further we get away from what we started from, it's starting to be weirder and weirder because like there's theories that like we're not really that bad in the astral or whatever world that lies beyond death, and that we're like perfect, and that we have a consciousness filtering from the source of the God Almighty and whatever you want to call him, here to experience a primitive life, like as a beast, as a human, as whatever. But yeah, that's just my opinion. It's nothing anyone should believe, because it's weird as hell. And it's really like unusual to hear about this stuff. So, and just one thing that I wanted to ask you regarding, like, why do you call animals innocent if they don't care about, like I said, pecking insects or eating grass that might contain insects on them, and they're not like pests. Everyone needs their food. It's just they're not innocent, and you protect them, like you
Yeah, I'm
accept them
happy.
for their flaws. But
Yeah, I'm happy to move on to that question, and I just wanted to flag the question. Yes, I'm happy to answer why I think animals are innocent. But just to conclude the antinatalism topic, like, do you agree that if humans cease to exist, like if we like stop breeding, we stop having babies, we became extinct, do you agree that uh, animals here on Earth have an objective existence and they're gonna continue to exist here even after the demise of humans, right?
well, they probably, maybe, I don't know. That's a hypothetical, because I don't know what would be the, maybe they would kill each other. I don't know how they're programmed to exist, and like
Well,
some are like,
I think we have reason to believe that they're going to continue existing in the same way that animals have always existed since the beginning of life here on Earth, by a biogenesis, or whether you want to think that life always existed and it spread to this
yeah.
planet. I think it's going to continue to exist after humanity, but it's going to be in a worse state. It's going to be like a kind of hellish state where like these animals are no longer going to have a sapient species that can use technology to make things better. So I think it's bad to like just like pull like an asshole move and like leave these animals like here to like starve to death and eat each other, and without any like modern medicine and technology to help them out. I think the right thing to do is to stay here, keep procreating, and trying to try to keep making things better and better.
Yeah, maybe that's why atheism sounds funny, because it's like there is one man that destroys the whole world and pop, no, nothing's anymore, nothing's left anymore, so every problem is solved. But some
Well,
people are,
every problem in this planet. But if you like
yeah,
blow this planet up, assuming we have technology to do that, because currently we don't have technology to blow the whole of life on Earth, like because there's life on on the depths of the ocean that we don't have technology to get rid of. But like assuming we do get rid of all life, one, it could actually re-evolve again. It could arise through a biogenesis again. And second, like there's I think very it's very likely that there's life all over the universe. So we're not gonna solve much by just killing ourselves.
well, yeah, that's a great point, and that's probably why individual choice is like the best
Yep,
thing,
I agree
because
with that. And we
yeah.
can agree with that. I myself, I don't think I'm gonna procreate personally. I think I'm gonna remain like child free. But I think it is a good thing when people choose to procreate, at least personally.
Well, yeah, I'd have to actually think more about it, and like just write like a diary of thoughts, like just that cross my mind, and just see what works and what doesn't, because I don't even know. You know, we absorb so many information, and just we don't really study our subconscious. We just are totally almost totally constantly bombarded by new info, and I mean, it depends on who's in question. Maybe someone has privacy and stuff, because I personally don't. So it's kind of difficult for me to, yeah, I mean, study some stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely think about that. So
Sure, man. I'm happy to hear out any reflections you have about it. If you have like any other counter argument against my position, but as of now, I'm unconvinced that ceasing to exist and not bringing babies is a good thing. But anyway, we can move on to your question. You were asking me why I consider animals to be innocent, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm just using like innocence in a kind of like a legal sense. I don't think animals have like enough moral agency to like distinguish right from wrong in the same way like somebody like that's mentally disabled that's like killed somebody by accident or like by carelessness or something. I don't think they deserve to like have the same like level of punishment as somebody that like what decided to do it out of their own volition or something like that. I just think animals are like children that are innocent because they don't have any like higher abilities to distinguish like right from wrong as humans. What do you think?
Well, maybe the same can be said for like insects. I don't know because they're eaten too, and like we don't protect them when crops are in question, but like we have compassion for like hypothetically we by we I mean you don't have like compassion for insects like when it comes to like crops, but like them being like how can I um uh you kill them with crops. Animals kill them accidentally. You you can say that they're childlike too, like the insects. So
Sure,
why
sure, sure.
would yeah
Yeah, if we're
that
assuming that they are sentient, yes, certainly they would be innocent as well, and they would also deserve moral consideration. The thing is that I'm unconvinced that we're doing something wrong or that it is not justified what we're doing. Like because even in the human context, if like a bunch of tiny mentally disabled humans were like eating all our crops, and we were like between civilization collapsing or using pesticides to to protect our crops from tiny humans, even if they were not. If even if they were innocent, I think it would be justified to protect their crops. So in the two cases, I have the same position.
yeah well I'll have to think. I think that would be all, like everything, because I have to think about actually more about and research it the crop deaths of insects, like how it's grown, like. But yeah, it's even that's unknowable. Like it's so massive that they're so tiny. Maybe it's just simply it just should be like that, but you say it's so weird because the carnists use the same excuse for themselves. They just say it's normal for us to eat animals, like and it's just
Yeah,
like
but that's
what
not
the
that's
fuck?
not the justification that I'm using. I'm not like appealing to tradition or to being normal or anything like that. I'm using reason to reach my position. I'm saying I'm just telling you why I think it's justified. I'm not appealing to it being normal.
Yeah, so sorry if I'm projecting because I don't know, like I don't know on which ground to like stand because I don't know from which, like I don't know how to argue really, because it's really a lot of opposing thoughts, and I can't stand with evidence for any of them. I can just like, let's say it's the worst, and what would you do in that worst situation, because it's worthy of thought. And like when it comes, what would you do? Like, yeah, let's say I'm an insect. Well, like is it how do you make an adjective out of dignity? Sorry, because I'm not really a native speaker.
Yeah, no worries, man. And I actually think you're coming from a very like benevolent place. I think you're a very compassionate person, and you're even like worried about the plight of insects. I think it's amazing, man. And we need more people like you, definitely. I'm just like personally unconvinced that it is unjustified what we're doing. Obviously, I'm all in favor of making things better and developing technology to not even have to commit crop dust in the first place. But at the end of the day, we might even be worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. Like assume, let's say, for the sake of argument, insects are not sentient. Then we would be like right now we would be worrying about like stuff that is not worth caring about. But yeah, I think it is good to assume the worst and to assume that they are actually sentient. And it is logically possible that they're like super sentient. And like I think it was the evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins that, for all we know, like insects could experience even more pain than us because like something very small can kill them, can end their life. So it would be like possible that they develop like an insane degree of pain that's to avoid noxious stimuli, and that they, for some reason, they even suffer more than us. All that stuff is possible, and it is good to assume the worst and you know deeply consider like the consequences of our actions. I think you're coming from a good place, and I appreciate it, man.
Thank you too.
Yeah, and I also have one question here. Um, so let's assume that all people are vegans and that everything is good. Nobody is killing any insects or any other animals whatsoever. There's still a problem here that in nature, animals, kill and eat each other. So there's a lot of deaths there and all that. So if we as humans who are conscious know that they do experience pain and suffering and all that, what will be the best course of action to simply act in accordance with that knowledge that animals are suffering and all that? Should we like reduce the natural habitats of those animals? Should we like do any of actions, because we know for the fact that there are so many deaths in nature. For example, as I mentioned previously, you have those big whales that kill like trillions of krill each second. So if for example those krills do feel pain, that is they're sentient, then we as a human species like have to act upon that to like reduce that pain, because I mean we did like reduce the killings of animals on the farms and on industrial scale, but animals are still being killed in the nature, so they are equally suffering there. So what would be in your opinion the best course of action?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I really appreciate it because this is actually something I deeply care about. It's like wild animal suffering and the issues of that wild animals face, like predation and starvation and all that stuff. So it is like it's something that we have to think about, and like what are some solutions on the meantime, because obviously like the ideal thing would be to develop some technology to like solve these issues, but right now what can we do right now? There's a couple of things that we can do. Like one of them is like what you mentioned, it's like to like slowly encroach in their territories and like reduce their habitats to a degree, like where we like like peacefully and non-violently like displace them out of existence by like creating like human infrastructure in their habitats to the degree that that's possible without us like destroying the environment, obviously. So that would be one course of action that we can take. I think there's another course of action that we can take right now as well that is controversial in the vegan community, but I myself think it is a justified thing. It is to kill some other predators. I think it is a good thing to hunt in certain situations, like to hunt what they call odd order predators. Odd order predators are predators that eat like innocent herbivores, like for example lions, stuff like that. I think it is a good thing for people to go out and hunt those animals to the extent that we can, and without like fucking up the environment or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I do think that, the first solution might be a better one because, um, you kind of like replaced one habitat that is the natural one with the one that's like a human made, where all the necessary things are like covered, to 100%. While if you like, kill the predators and do things like that, then you're just kind of like make a disbalance in the, in the natural habitat, which is kind of like, make all kinds of other sufferings. For example, those plant-eating species are like kind of like increase their population, and that's gonna cause all kinds of other problems because everything is
It
like
could be.
interconnected.
It could be, but we also have like as of now, we have no reason to believe that at least killing some of these predators is gonna have like any kind of devastating consequences. Because why do we think that? Because there's already people doing it. Like there's people that get hunting licenses and shoot lions and shoot like they shoot lions, they shoot bears, and stuff like that. There's already people doing that. The ecosystem is not collapsing anytime soon. I think that to be consistent, I think we should we should take similar approaches as we would take in the human context. Because again, I think veganism is a logical extension of the idea of human rights. Presumably, you guys would be like in favor. Let's say like we also like suffered the unfortunate of being like predated upon. Let's say there was like a predator roaming the earth and killing humans alive. It was like targeting children and eating children alive, and let's call it a chupacabras. Would you guys be in favor of like shooting chupacabras to save children?
For me, I'm definitely for, like, because that's pretty much personal, and like I'm an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth guy. And you?
Yeah, exactly. So I have the same view. I have the
Yeah, I
same view. I
mean,
think
of
it will be
course, I
justified.
mean,
So in the
uh,
same way, so in the same way that I think it would be justified to kill chupacabras to save children, I think it is justified to like kill lions to save zebra and stuff like that.
well, I mean, you did mention that, people do that nowadays, and it's, a type of sustainable, like, killing. So, I mean, there's also, like, all kinds of, regulations regarding that. I mean, how many animals can you kill in what season? Can you, like, hunt those animals and things like that? I mean, you can't, like, wipe the entire population of lions, of course. I mean, that's, like, against the law by all means. But you can hunt in a sustainable way, and that is what's like allowed. But I mean, like like completely wiping out some predatory species. I mean, that will come at some cost. For
It could, it could.
the ecosystem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think if we had like any reason to believe that it would be devastating ecologically, then obviously we shouldn't do it. But I just think we should take like a consistent approach to however we would treat it in the human case. Like let's say we had a sustainable way to like hunt chupacabra so we could save some children's lives and stuff like that. But if we wiped out all the chupacabras, then it would be like devastating ecologically. So then that would be a reason to not wipe out all the chupacabras. But it would still be a good thing to wipe out some chupacabras, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, that's hypothetical scenario, but man, a very specific one. But yeah, I mean, I do see your point there. But as I said, I'm, firm believer that the first scenario which you mentioned, that is actually like replacing the natural habitat with the human habitat. And I don't, by saying human, mean the ones that are like cities and all that, but I actually go way further in future. So by that I mean some extremely technologically advanced systems where there's not going to be any suffering, no animals there and things like that. So I think that's going to be a thing in the future, but not anytime soon.
Yep, and
And
also it is something. It is something that we are actually already doing, right? As humans are like slowly encroaching into the territory of animals already, right? We're creating more and
yeah.
more human infrastructure. So the first solution is it is a solution that we are applying as well, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that, of course, I agree there. So it's kind of thing that's happening as you speak. It's like some kind of, evolution. So yeah, I think that things are gonna be better as time goes on. So that's
Hopefully,
definitely
right?
gonna be.
Hopefully, at least it doesn't hurt to be optimistic about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am, but I do believe that there's gonna be a lot of suffering until we get to that point. I mean, not
Yep, I
suffering
agree.
for us humans, but suffering for, the animals and insects if we believe that they, feel pain and so on. So, yeah.
and just to make my stance regarding the chupacabra thing, I think I would just exterminate them all, because like to me the intention matters more than like the byproduct of someone's behavior. So like just because the ecosystem will go to ruin because we like And chupacabras went extinct doesn't mean it shouldn't be like that. That's my opinion. Like,
Yeah, I think we share. I think we share very similar values to that. I actually personally also would rather like err on the side of saving the victims from the chupacabras. So I would be in
Yeah.
favor of like just shooting them, like regardless of like the potential like ecological consequences. I think we should like be more concerned about the individual victims that are gonna be eaten alive.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as you said, if there's like some like devastating consequence by killing all on, I mean, by wiping all the chupacabras there, right? Then, I mean, let's imagine that that devastating
Sure,
consequence is like, more children being, uh, more children
sure, Joe.
dying,
Yes, yes, yes. So
something like
there
that.
we agree.
So, I
I understand.
mean, if you
So I
like
understand
have
where you're
to
going
like
with.
weigh the consequences, then I guess, I mean, uh, or swiping out the entire population
Yeah. So
would
let me
be like
like
in the
clarify.
long run might be a better thing in the long run if those consequences are something that can be overcome in the
Sure.
future, but if not, then I mean definitely like not a good idea.
Yeah, so let me like to clarify my position is like if we had like any reason to believe that it would be devastating ecologically, that it would cause like more disutility and more suffering and more children like suffering horrifically to wipe out the whole chupacabra, then yes, like in that like hypothetical, yes, I would think let them exist in a vacuum so we can like sustain like civilization and prevent like more suffering, sure. But like I'm just saying, like if we're like completely agnostic as we currently are, if we're agnostic about what the consequences are of wiping out the chupacabras or wiping out the lions, I think if we're agnostic, I think at least personally, I rather err on the side of saving the victims. At least personally.
Me too. Well, yeah, I mean that is the point, to like save as many victims as possible and make as much less suffering as possible. As less suffering as possible.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
like we all agree that suffering seems to be like unfortunately like something intrinsic to life and something that plagues us all. But who knows? Maybe in the deep future we like get rid of suffering as well with some like some sort of like transhumanistic technology or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely some drastic things are gonna happen in future because I mean, I don't really, see this, society and humanity to be like this forever. I mean, definitely not, because technology is like advancing, new ways and things are like being discovered. So I'm pretty sure that things are gonna get better in future. Because I mean, if you look in the past, I mean, uh, society is just like getting better and better thanks to the technology. Some things that were so difficult in the past become so easy in the future. And, we already know that, in some future, the AI is gonna like, replace all the manual labor. So you're not gonna like, kill our backs with, doing those, hard physical labors and things like that, because machines are gonna like take over all the labor. So I mean, some people like fear it's gonna like make people lose their jobs and so on. But I actually think that's gonna be a better thing because we are not gonna like have to have that kind of painful work, so that's gonna be a good thing. And I don't really think that we're gonna have like, any like existential crisis, like we're not gonna have like money or anything like that. I think that's gonna be fine because I mean those machines, they're gonna like create goods and services and all we actually need. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about the future.
and just
Yeah,
to say
I'm
that,
into that. I'm into that, man. And I hope we as humans work hard
Yeah.
to make that future a reality. It would
Yeah, I
definitely
mean,
be a good thing.
that's definitely gonna happen. I think that all the animals and insects in future are gonna be like, they might be extinct, but they're still gonna be like, there's still gonna be like some technological way to like make them exists if necessary. Yeah, I mean their genes are gonna be saved. That's what I wanna say. But I don't really think that those form of existence are gonna exist in future because if the entire world is uh, became a human habitat with zero natural habitat, then if you think about it, it's kind of pointless to have species forms such as cows, dogs, cats, and so on. I mean, they might exist for some time as pets or something like that, but I don't really see a point of those species existing in a world like that, because the entire point of those species is to serve some purpose in their habitat. You have
Yeah,
the specialized species.
and I just want to add to that whether or not they have any like intrinsic objective purpose, I don't care about that. But I think one of the problematic things is animal procreation itself seems to be problematic because animals can't consent to the consequences of sexual intercourse. So I think it is actually a bad thing to let wild animals or even domestic animals to procreate, because to me it seems analogous to letting children procreate. We have these beings that don't have any way to have to
Well, yeah, I
consent.
mean, and there's many evidences. Biologists observe the behavior of some animals. For example, some birds that just start sexual intercourse in a way that's it will be called as a rape. So yeah, that does happen in the nature. That's my point. So that does happen a lot. I mean, bad things happen a lot. There are no laws in the nature. So
Yeah, but
usually
having that said, I don't think there's I don't see any issue with for example cloning happy animals into existence. I don't really see an issue with that. Animal
well,
procreation itself seems fucked up because they cannot have informed consent. But if we were to just clone a bunch of happy minds into existence, I don't necessarily see the issue with that.
well, yeah. I mean, I guess their purpose will be something to exist as someone's pets or something like that. Because I mean, if you're talking about that hypothetical, highly developed technological society without nature, then I mean, the question of form will be, I mean, what will be the purpose of, for example, animal like cow or a horse or something like that? So I don't think that those kind of animal forms will be they won't make any sense existing. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
the,
at
the,
least
the
my
purpose the purpose the purpose could simply be for them to experience well-being and to enjoy their lives. That could be simply the whole purpose.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that could work, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. But I mean, most of the animals would be wiped out because I mean, in a nature you have highly specialized creatures that only can exist in a context of the environment in which they live, and it's really specific type of environment. So you have animals that are exactly as their surroundings. You have some type of birds that have their beaks in a exact way as, for example, a flower. So I'm talking about the hummingbirds. So yeah, I mean, you have all those cases where simply your form of existence is in accordance with the environment in which you live. So yeah, for those kind of animals, I don't really think that there would be a purpose to live.
Well, if it's gradual, maybe
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry. I can't really speak, but I just think I don't. I just it depends what you mean by purpose. What is our purpose? Do we have any purpose? Maybe not.
Well, I mean, it's
Maybe
really
the whole
easy
point.
to
Maybe
answer
the whole
that.
point. Sorry. Maybe the whole point is just to experience well-being and to benefit out of our own existence, and that's it. But anyway, by the
Well,
way,
yeah.
I see my friend surfing, and I kind of got tempted to surf, and I think we already covered every area that I wanted to cover. So I'll let you guys speak any final remarks that you want, but we can call it. I think it was very interesting conversation. I want to thank you both.
Yeah, thank you, Harry.
Yeah, it was a really nice conversation. So have fun surfing. Yeah.
Thank you, man. Sorry, I interrupted Daniel. Is there anything else you want to say?
Oh, yeah, just nothing. No, it's minor thing. That everything, if it's gradual, there's place for evolution. I think so. Yeah. The point, the hummingbirds and everything else would have time to evolve into something else if we give it space, and so if we try to coexist with nature and try to actually, you know, everything can be in a balanced way. No, nothing has to be as aggressive like pointing like the is it the dodo bird that went extinct? Because like that was really an aggressive campaign. We eat them and it was terrible and they went extinct. So yeah, that's everything. So sorry for keeping you, and you can go surf. Thank you.
No, no worries, man. Thank you for your times. Hope you go vegan, bro. George. But anyway, take it
Yeah.
easy, my friends. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah, have fun.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.
Peace.